this is Dr. Felix Briswella. I want to talk to you today about an issue relating to this false rhetoric about prescription opiates causing a prescription opiate epidemic. Now, if you look behind me, look at that chart. The line in blue is prescription opiates from about 2000 until a couple of years ago. As you see, there was never an increase. I mean, this represents prescription opiates. There was never an increase in prescription opiates. Now, if you look at the gray line, at about the time when they started really getting aggressive about attacking doctors and putting them in prison, there was actually a slight dip in the blue line, not really shown well here, which was at the time when doctors stopped prescribing prescription opiates because they didn't want to go to jail. Now take a look at the gray line. That represents fentanyl. Now, what is this graph? If you could take if you could take one thing away from about this graph, is that when there was a dip in the prescription opiate prescribing, there was a massive rise in the fentanyl abuse. What does that mean? That patients could not get prescription opiates, so they reached for the streets for fentanyl. We call them chronic pain refugees. This graph has been seen millions of times, and it was put out by the DA as well. They're pretty much admitting here that there was never a prescription opiate epidemic, and although they don't admit to this, many others have talked about this in the media. Besides CNN and Fox, they're a waste of human existence. They have emphasized that the drop in prescribing of prescription opiates resulted in the abuse of fentanyl. As you can see from this graph, you're not hallucinating. That gray line, it is rising rapidly, and as I've mentioned earlier in previous posts, the government is still going after doctors, but they're not doing a damn thing about fentanyl. So the only conclusion we can draw is that the government is facilitating the fentanyl epidemic and not allowing doctors to prescribe prescription opiates. For chronic pain patients, there has been a 600% increase in deaths by suicide on the part of chronic pain patients. Not to mention that they're suffering. There's been an increase in heart disease because chronic stress due to pain causes heart disease. There was a 10-year study that was published October of 2021 in JAMA about this, but that's besides the fact. Now, here in Pennsylvania, our governor is Josh Shapiro. Josh Shapiro was a previous attorney general here in Pennsylvania. Now, to become governor, he beat a very dysfunctional, really wacky Republican candidate who was a big Trumpster and believed that the election was bought. So it's only natural that Mickey Mouse could have beat this guy. But the thing about Mr. Shapiro, he's had it up for doctors. I mean, he went after so many doctors here in Pennsylvania. Even with this graph behind me, illustrating that there was never a prescription opiate epidemic, he didn't care. Okay, I mean, I have a friend who is a really good doctor. He's an excellent pain specialist. Josh Shapiro went after him with a vengeance for no reason. This was a good man who was just practicing his art. How did my friend find out? One day, his office got raided. Get this, Josh Shapiro and his cronies call the media. The media shows up, and they put my friend in handcuffs, took him away, and put him in prison. There was no due process. This is the same tactic that is used on drug cartels, except our country, our government, doesn't have the backbone to go after the drug cartels. You can tell from this fentanyl graph, but they're going after the doctors, so they're using the tactics that they're supposed to be using on drug cartels, on doctors. But what made me think about this today is I was watching the news this morning, having my coffee, And I saw a very troubling commercial uh, stating that, I mean, keep your kids away from prescription opiates. It only takes 10 days to become an addict. First of all, that's fucking bullshit. That's not true. You're a liar, okay? They use the word dependence. Dependence means that you use it for a legitimate reason. If you've got high blood pressure, you're dependent on high blood pressure medication. So that was, addiction is the correct term. Addiction is defined as the use of a substance for a purpose other than for what it was intended to, with socially dysfunctional behavior. That's what addiction is, whether it be stealing, truancy, or whatever, okay? So, Mr. Shapiro, you're living in the past. Why is Mr. Shapiro doing this? Look, again, we can only speculate. Look at the facts. There's a horrible fentanyl epidemic here in Pennsylvania. He's doing nothing about that. I mean, he wants to keep going after doctors. We had his struthers, okay? So why? Because he gets, you can only speculate that, like many other politicians, many other what we call corporate politicians, he's getting his pockets lined by the health insurance industry. What's the association? The health insurance industry is the one fueling this attack against doctors. And the reason that Congress is not doing anything about it is because there's 10 times more insurance company lobbyists than there are congressmen in Washington. That pretty much tells the story, and the only explanation for Josh Shapiro's stupidity, Mr. Shapiro, is that you yourself are getting kickbacks and putting doctors in jail. Pennsylvania has a severe crisis, a severe shortage of doctors and nurses. 3 hospitals in Pittsburgh have had to shut down because they cannot recruit doctors because doctors are retiring and they're afraid to practice. So congratulations, Mr. Shapiro. You're killing Pennsylvanians for your own profit. Have a good day.